Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, citizens of crypto land, welcome back to another AMA with myself, TheGobOne, aka Ryan. Today I have with me three members of the DADI team. My first multi-person AMA. It's going to be interesting, but I've got Joe, the CEO, Jim, the CTO, and Arthur, the lead engineer, with us. Thank you for taking the time out, guys. All right, so if you haven't been a part of my AMAs before, I have a very strict flow to it. One thing I do want to bring up right from the start, if you do have a question for us, please start it off with question in all capitals. We do ask all the questions in the chat at the end, most of the questions. And I also like to start off by reading my beautiful TheGobOne disclaimer. So I'm going to do that for you guys right now. This is not financial advice. I'm not a licensed or professional financial advisor. I have not received any compensation of any form for this interview, which allows me to maintain integrity and conduct a fair and unbiased review. Any comment or statement on the value of the DADI token or its token sale is solely the thoughts and speculation of myself and does not reflect their view in any way. Disclaimer down. All right, thanks for joining us, guys. I know your ICOs in a few days. It's probably hectic and nuts for you guys right now. For sure. All right, so the other thing I want to mention to the audience, we will not field questions on exchanges. That's not fair to the DADI team or anybody else, because they shouldn't speculate on that and you shouldn't be asking those questions. So carrying on with the AMA, let's actually start with the first question I always like to ask everybody is, what is DADI? Give me the elevator pitch. Oh, sorry, Joe. Sorry, can I stop? I'm sorry. Apparently the audience can't hear you here, so give me just one. I can hear you, yeah, so this will be on my end. Sorry, guys. Just when you think you're all set up and ready to go. Sorry about that, guys. I think they can probably hear you now. Let me just double check.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. There we go. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TheGobOne. Yeah, let's go back. Welcome to the TheGobOne live stream, where at least once I will screw stuff up. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. Basically, you guys heard me ask Joe, give us the elevator pitch for DADI. So yeah, sorry about that, but start from the top, Joe.
Sure. So what I was saying was that you can think of DADI as a set of development tools that enable you to build, launch, and scale your digital products incredibly quickly and incredibly easily. And because DADI is a kind of completely decentralized platform, it enables you to get your content way closer to your customer, to your audience, than ever before, and also at a price point that you really can't achieve in traditional environments. Our web services provide everything you need to make a website, to launch an API, to power a mobile app, and to build decentralized apps as well. So just to kind of focus on a couple of those web services for a moment to give some kind of context as to what you can do on the platform. We have kind of 4 key services ready right now. 2 of those are in testing in our testnet, and we'll be launching them kind of sequentially over the course of the next year plus. So DADI API allows you to spin up a kind of full-featured, RESTful, composable, also enterprise-ready API in like 20 seconds. DADI Web provides you with a modern web server, an interchangeable template layer, support for multiple data sources. It will plug in and consume data from pretty much anywhere. DADI CDN is an asset handler with built-in kind of composition support, dynamic routing, and has a lot of kind of enhanced features coming down the track as well, like object recognition, plugging into our machine learning layer for images, automatic content classification, that sort of thing. And DADI Publish provides modern editorial interfaces, and we've developed those kind of suite of interfaces in conjunction with some major publishers from both the UK and the USA. And there are many more web services besides. You can find them all on DADI Tech and in our GitHub.
Perfect. All right. So one thing I always like to do to give the audience sort of an idea, I'd like to have you, compare yourself to a non-crypto entity and maybe like a crypto entity if you're similar in that sense, to give people a high-level comparison so they get an idea of what you are. So I think in your guys' case, you're pretty similar to Amazon Web Services, right?
Yeah, right. So I guess the comparison with Amazon is they're available in multiple data centers. So it's multiple centralized networks, really. And if you want to get set up on in a particular region, then you have to do that manually. But where DADI's coming in is to try and spread that out across thousands of points of access, giving coverage much more than you get with the likes of AWS. AWS doesn't have any presence in Africa, simply because of cost to get in there and demand. But with the DADI network, we can have nodes anywhere at a fraction of the cost. Also, what you get with the likes of AWS and DigitalOcean is an empty box, largely, in which you have to deploy whatever you're going to deploy yourself. So the interfaces that they provide for that are pretty much as confusing as they can get, with so many configuration options that it's overwhelming to the basic user. What we're trying to do with our interfaces is to make that as simple as possible, so that you can spin up a new web server, a new API, a new CDN at the click of a button, and don't have to do any of that deployment wizardry that is required for some of the cloud providers. I guess a close comparison could also be Heroku, in terms of say the marketplace that they've got for the add-ons platform. With the DADI marketplace that is that's roadmapped, we'll have a sort of a similar feature for that, where you can build your own and share entire configurations of the platform, so all the DADI web services together, or simple smaller components for each of the services. So the templating engines for web, the data connectors for API, or image processing modules for CDN.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Jim. Okay, so at this time, let's maybe go into some of the team's background, and you can touch on key team members. Don't leave anyone out, of course, and maybe some of the advisors. But just give us a little bit of a background, and I'd like you guys to touch on your experience with Airlock too, because I think that's important. Oh, you're muted, Joe. Yep.
Always muted. Can you hear me now?
Yepers, you got it. Go ahead.
Excellent, brilliant. Still learning this tech, clearly. May as well start with that. So, I mean, my partners and I founded Airlock back in 1999, kicking it off in earnest in 2000, if you can believe it. And, Airlock was actually always a technology company. We sold ourselves on the basis of the quality of our kind of broadcast, media, and marketing output. But we were driven of our heart by tech. And, the vast majority of our revenues came in the business. I'd say a good 95% plus came through the technology team itself. So, we built and we open source Symfony back in, I think, 2006. That was on the back of our kind of experience of kind of reinventing the wheel, I guess, every time we were building out a new solution for, for one of the businesses we were working with. And a lot of the design patterns that, existed in Symfony still exist in Symfony, are fairly aligned to where we are today with DADI. So it's been a kind of natural evolution for us, I guess. We see our experience as being, one of being in technology businesses for a long period of time. A number of the guys who were with us, obviously 3 founding partners, myself, Will, and Chris, started, Will and I started that business. Chris joined us in 2005-06 from Diesel. But a number of the other guys on the team were with us at Airlock as well. We kind of really like that continuity. We work really well together as a kind of core team. We know each other very well. While we work remotely, we're kind of a distributed team. We get together pretty regularly as well. So that that kind of continuity has worked really well for us. In terms of our background and a kind of individual experience, I'll let Jim and Arthur speak for themselves, but I'm happy to kind of flip through everyone else on the team if that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I mean, I started out in '99. I joined a business called Web Marketing at the kind of on the cusp of the .com boom and bust. I was the fourth member of that business. Will, one of my partners, was I think the third or second member of that business, basically one of the co-founders of that business. So I met him there when I started out. That business, we grew to 160 people. We sold to Chime Communications. We then left and moved to Airlock, which we ran for many years. Yeah, we worked with a lot of businesses, tens, maybe hundreds of businesses in that time, centered on tech, centered on infrastructure. You know, we did a lot of VPC work. We did a lot of kind of broadcast play out work. So we used to kind of dealing with large scale implementations of networks. We ran, for example, the BBC streaming coverage across all their social platforms for the 2012 Olympics. You know, we've done broadcast kind of play out for the BBC, for ITV. We developed the first version of ITV Player, which is a competitor to iPlayer over here. So kind of lots of experience in that kind of networking space as well. We sold Airlock to the Publicis Group back in 2010, 11, I think. And I then spent 2 years there, 2.5 years there as the group technical director before leaving to set up DADI with Will and Chris. Chris has been with us since around about 2006. He's a kind of key strategist, pretty deep thinker, you know, very much on the kind of cutting edge of tech and particularly the kind of blockchain crypto space. He was global marketing director at Diesel before he came over to us. He was actually one of our clients at Airlock, but you know, he liked what we were doing. We got to know him well. He came and joined us. Will, my other founder, so you know, I've been with him for the duration. He looks after the kind of support and operations side of our business. So he leads the account team for our existing businesses, and we'll be looking after that kind of solution support piece moving forward. I have a COO in Paul Kingsley, who you know has been running businesses in various guises as a COO, as a CFO, and as an MD for many years. I won't go into depth on those, but they're all listed out on his LinkedIn. Jim, do you want to talk about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my experience is originally in ASP.NET applications at the beginning of the .com boom, I guess, and then moved into a position building C# and Java applications for the Barclays Group Treasury middle office team. From there, I moved into developing some applications and building out the back ends of websites for the BBC magazine publishing division. So a lot of exposure to publishers there. Before joining DADI and getting involved in Symphony CMS, so a lot of PHP development there, and sort of moving us towards where we are now with a JavaScript and Node.js stack. So a varied history of programming languages. And
we actually have a co-CTO position, so we have 2 CTOs in the business. I've got an awful lot of echo on this line suddenly. You mute yourself, Jim. Thanks. So I have Francesco Inzanelli, who's technical director with us. He has been working in this space for a good 25 years plus. You know, he would pitch himself as a security expert. You know, he has a deep experience in cloud and distributed networking, and specializes in kind of architecture design. He oversees much of our core product from that perspective. You know, he previously helped lead and roll out large-scale operations, so Tesco.com, which you may or may not be familiar with, but it's a huge organization over here, and a number of other spaces as well. And then to kind of flick through the rest of the team, Jo Biddulph is our tech implementation director. She's very much on the kind of solutions side of the business. Paul Regan is our product director. So he's responsible for the kind of strategic development of the web services stack itself. So he works with industry to understand requirements, feed those back into the team to kind of keep that dev loop running. We have a design director in Dave Longworth, who was previously a design lead at Monocle. He's done some amazing work for Red Bull, for Google, for Chanel, for Ray-Ban. His work's been featured by Apple in their kind of major presentations, and having him on the team, from my perspective, is kind of critical, because user experience, going back to what Jim was saying earlier about what kind of sets us apart from who we see as our main competition, is that he is just having that kind of level and quality of brand work and kind of interaction design at the forefront of what we do. And we'll be building out a team to support him as well. We have Victor Ferrer, who's one of our principal engineers. He was actually the first employee at DADI, so he's been with us since year dot. Arthur, do you want to talk about yourself briefly?
Yeah, sure. I can hear myself. Yours, Joe. So I've got probably the most glamorous background. I started originally in a company in Manchester in the UK, working on pipeline inspection, like drain pipe inspection robots with like real-time reporting. Then moved to a slightly less glamorous position at Monocle magazine, where I ran the web team for about 2.5 years. And in that time, with Monocle being one of the clients of DADI, or Airlock at the time, the website being built on Symfony CMS, I had a lot of interaction with Joe and the team, and pestered Joe for about a year until he let me come and join at DADI, where I sort of focused mainly on working with Node.js, Go, Python, and a variety of other languages for some of the core products.
Perfect. All right. Does that cover pretty much most of the team, Joe?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, I'm not sure what's going on with my mute button. There are a bunch of other people as well. I can keep going if you like, or we can press off.
No, I think that's good. And you guys have everybody listed on the website. So if everybody is interested, absolutely come and take a look, because I love that you guys list everybody on the site and what they do exactly and what their role is in the company. I think that's important. And the way it's laid out is pretty well done. So if you guys have more interest in the team, definitely come check out the website, and everybody's got proper links to their LinkedIn's, Twitters, Facebooks, etc. So
I'll tell you what, it's important to say as well that every single member of our team is in our community. So we're all on Discord, we're all on Telegram. If you want to reach out to us individually, collectively, feel free.
Yeah, that's one amazing thing about the crypto world that I see is the teams are just in there, in the trenches, answering the questions. You don't see that in the traditional business world in any shape or form. So it's pretty awesome to see.
What I like about that is it's kind of reflective of what crypto is doing in general. It's kind of shaking up established norms and hierarchies, right? So it's really neat to see that kind of played out in business structures as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people don't realize the value of having the CEO of a company sitting here, being able to ask him questions. So, all right, let me just ask on this one, how did you come up with the idea for DADI? Like, how was it conceived?
So, earlier I was talking about being in a position in the early days of Airlock of kind of having to reinvent the wheel over and over, I guess. And it was that as we moved, through to the kind of end of Airlock, selling Airlock, it was really a natural evolution. So, our web services were kind of born out of a frustration with what we ended up seeing as a kind of lack of flexibility that exists in what I'd call monolith systems. So, old school platforms like your WordPresses, your Drupals, your Sitecores, where you have kind of a lot of centralized services built into single networking stacks and also into single blocks of software. And we wanted to build something that was just much faster and easier to deploy, to manage, to scale, and obviously to build on. We originally had the vision for that as a traditional kind of centralized cloud infrastructure play, right? And that's what we were building out. Chris and I first discussed moving to a cloud, from a cloud setup to a kind of decentralized network back in February 2016. And we started R&D, I guess, around about 19 months ago, and launched the testnet last year. So, it's been a process of kind of evolution and rapid development for us. Born of an idea which is now, gosh, I guess 5 years old.
Perfect. Yeah, you guys. That's the one thing people don't, I think, touch on a lot is you guys have been working on this for quite a long time, right? Like it's not a decentralized solution that you started out with, but you're moving towards that now. But DADI's something that's an entity that's been around for 5 years, right?
4.5 for DADI, yeah, just over.
Yeah, there you go. All right, perfect. A little bit off topic, but my tech guy, when he saw that you guys had background in Symfony CMS, he absolutely went crazy. So he's a huge fan of your guys. Now,
excellent.
This is going to be the unfortunate part of the AMA. Although I'm very happy to do it, we're going to dig into the FUD. I know people have questions about it, etc. But it's going to be. I want to clear it up completely in this AMA because, well, frankly, I'm tired of going on Twitter and seeing the craziness that people are talking about. So I guess in the general sense, and we'll probably get more in-depth questions at the AMA section, but in my eyes, the FUD is two-pronged, which is the copying of the Sonam white paper and the dissolution of the businesses is the biggest two that I see. So I'll let you guys sort of respond to that, and let's clear this up here.
Sure. So I guess where to start? Let's start with the businesses, because that's a hilarious one and a totally factually incorrect non-story. So between us, I mean, the key thing to say, first thing to say, is that we're entrepreneurs, right? So we have ideas all the time. Some of those we execute on, some of those we don't execute on. If you look at Companies House and the listings and what's tied to our names, there are actually 5 dissolved companies between the 3 founders, and one of those was actually from one of our wives' businesses. So, of the remaining 4, one of them was dissolved in November 2017. We never did anything with that business. It was a concept that we had. We set up a holding company to protect the brand and the business name, and then did nothing with it, and it was dissolved automatically as a result of not trading. One was in April 2017. Exactly the same story. Set up, never did anything with it, never traded, never filed. One was dissolved in November 2014. Exactly the same story. One was dissolved in August 2014. So we're going back quite a way with these. So it's a little bit of a stretch, however you look at it. As I said, none of those businesses ever traded. None of them ever held any IP. They weren't active in any way, shape, or form. They were set up off the back of ideas that we didn't take forward to market. The exception in there is Airlock itself, which as I've mentioned already, we sold to Publicis. That was then merged into Leo Burnett. Subsequently, that business was dissolved after we left. We hit the end of our earnout period. The business was dissolved. The brand was taken in and maintained, and is still there to this day. So hopefully that kind of clears up that side of things. There's not much more to say other than as I say, it's a total non-story.
Yeah, it's pretty ludicrous, some of the stuff I've heard. So all right, so that clears up the dissolution of businesses, guys, which it obviously isn't the main focus, but it's something that was getting more and more traction, which was, as you kind of mentioned, hilarious in some sort of states, because it was just massively ludicrous, the things people were saying. So
yeah,
all right,
I've seen people saying stuff like, you dissolved 6 businesses a month before you set up that and stuff like it. It's just utter
Welcome to the crypto land. Everybody's got their magnifying glass.
Anyone around this stuff is just go and do your own reading and your own research, right? We're happy to answer the same questions over and over, but yeah, it'd be better for you if you just did a little bit of digging yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. All right, so let's move on to the white paper stuff, and then we'll get into the project itself, which I'm super excited for.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, the white paper one was an unfortunate kind of episode, and you know, we've held our hands up and apologized for that. You know, a lot of work and research went into the kind of foundations of the stack itself, and the paper, you know, started life like quite a long way after we began work on building the product itself, as what I describe as a scaffold. So it's a series of titles, of notes that we kind of broke into individual documents, took away and collectively worked on. You know, when you're kind of writing like that, it's fairly usual to drop references in and to use them to help inform your own work, right? Everybody does that in every area of research. We then brought it all back together again, and you know what happened at that point was one section in particular wasn't reviewed, it wasn't well written, it was in fact in many respects a direct kind of copy from another white paper, but you know, we're talking about a couple of hundred words, right, 300-400 at the outside, that really have no material impact on the network itself. They're not part of you know, what was described there is not part of what we've built and we're building. So yeah, listen, it's really important to say that that's not something that we're looking to excuse at all. It was a huge oversight. We've apologized, and I will apologize again. I'm very sorry for the kind of confusion that caused, because it was a huge distraction. You know, and obviously it led to quite a kind of painful 48 hours for our entire team. And just to give you a view of the extremes of that, you know, one of my founders, Chris, you know, he received some death threats, right? So on the scale of reasonable proportion responses, from our perspective, it was blown out of all proportion. Like I say, I'm not looking to excuse it, but it was an unfortunate event. We've moved on from it. We've rectified it. We're head down, focused on ongoing R&D. You know, what we really care about is the technology and getting it to market as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And just I wanted to give my view on it here too as well, because that was sort of what when it first came out, you know, my exact comment was, you know, I could see a world in which, you know, you're doing research, you like things in other white papers all over, you drop it in with the intention of coming back and, you know, seeing, does this fit our technology and the way we've written our white paper, etc. And then forgot about it. It's very plausible, and I'm glad that's kind of what you said. The other thing is that has nothing to do with your current tech. Also, as stated by our good friend on Twitter, John McAfee, developers are not writers. That they're there to develop and not write. So people, I mean, I appreciate the crypto world with the magnifying glasses catching everything, but death threats, that's absolute insanity in my eyes. So
yeah, we would agree with that. I mean, I think the good thing to say, that whole kind of magnifying glass and the level of detail is there, that collectively that can only make all of us stronger, right? So, you know, we think we've come out the other side of this better than we went in, and yeah, that side of it, honest, reasoned debate, discussion, absolutely game for. You know, we're open, we're being as transparent as it is humanly possible to be. So, like I say, the whole team's there and available, and that's something we kind of encourage.
Absolutely, yeah. I said this as well to the people in my Discord. You know, the fact that you guys put your hands up right away within hours is a lot more than a lot of other ICOs have done when addressing FUD. In fact, the manual seems to be ignore it until it goes away. So I have to at least commend you guys for having the quote unquote balls to at least admit your mistakes. So that's going to clear up the FUD from me. Let's actually get into the product itself, because I am freaking excited about this. One question to start off with that people like to know is, have your smart contracts been audited?
No, they haven't currently been audited. They've been peer reviewed quite extensively, and we've got around 3,000 lines of unit test code against them. The team's been testing them thoroughly on the test networks, and we've already had a successful pre-sale period as well, which went really well, and the contract stood up to that. So. Yeah, no to being audited by a third party. However, for the contracts within the network itself, they are being audited by third parties.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So let's maybe we did touch quite a bit on the like the technology overview side of things and the platform architecture, etc. Unless you sort of want to dig into that side of things, but if not, then I'm going to kind of move on to the network players, so to speak, the most exciting part in my mind, which is the host gateways and stargates. So I'm really hoping you're going to answer this. I don't know if you can, but I've been bugging you for at least 2 weeks now on the number of tokens that are needed. But I guess I'm skipping ahead. So maybe let's get some explanation on these hosts, gateways, and stargates. Go ahead.
Arthur, do you want to take this?
Sure. So we're actually currently working through. The short answer is that we're still working through exactly how many tokens are going to be needed by each of the miners at each level. So there's 100 million tokens which are being used to determine proof of stake and sort of play quite a vital role in proof of availability and network activity. We will know this. We will know the exact numbers that are required to be any of the miners within the network at the point of launch of the mainnet, which should be Q2 this year. And there'll be a steady rollout. So we're going to start with hosts, which are the sort of application host miners, and sort of roll out from there. So we'll be answering as each of them become available.
Do you want to give a breakdown of what each of the nodes are doing, Arthur?
Sure. So the Stargate, which is the kind of the biggest and I guess most powerful node or miner within the network. Stargates do two things. They resolve DNS, so that's the DNS layer within the network. So any requests, resolution through Stargates. They also hold a network manifest, and the network manifest basically just is a complete itinerary of all of the hosts and gateways and Stargates within the network. So that's the method which we kind of keep everything in sync. And that manifest also informs all of the other hosts and gateways as to what they should be doing. So what applications they should be running, which gateway a host should be connected to, and a bunch of the kind of status related criteria. The gateways, which are another publicly accessible, so public IP, pretty powerful nodes, are a point of DNS resolution. So after DNS is resolved, it's resolved to a gateway. The gateway will queue any requests that it receives. So it's responsible for handling queuing requests and distribution of requests. And hosts will connect to gateways. Hosts read the request pool and dequeue their requests on the app is hosting, and return the result using protocol buffers, which is a data serialization method, kind of language neutral serialization method, back to the gateways, and then gateways resolve that to the end user. And that's the kind of basics of the process.
Okay, perfect. So it sounds like, unfortunately, no hard numbers on, because I've always explained this to people as essentially a 3-tiered masternode system is how I take it. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that would be a pretty good assessment. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, but no actual token numbers yet.
Not yet, no, but soon, I promise.
Okay, perfect. I'm just gonna keep bugging you, Joe, until you give me those numbers. So, all right. So, sorry, go ahead.
Please do.
All right. So let's talk about the request pool and how the reputation system will be implemented into that.
Sure. So the request pool resides in the gateway. It's a publicly addressable miner. It's obviously resolved by the DNS. It holds all of the inbound requests. As I mentioned earlier, the hosts connect to this and dequeue as at the highest rate they possibly can, based on the application they have running. So let's say a gateway is managing 10 different applications, and DNS resolves to that gateway. The gateway sees which DNS has been resolved, is able to determine which application that relates to, just kind of like normal DNS resolution. Hosts are download and sync applications based on requirement within the network. So you may have hosts hosting different applications all connected to one gateway. Those hosts will, if they see a queued request for one of their apps, they will dequeue it. They will resolve it to a local container and respond. And there's a kind of reputation system around that. So the reputation of each of the hosts within the gateway, within the network, are based on their kind of availability, proof of stake, proof of availability, and also regular peer reviews. So there's a kind of there's an incentive to be available, performant, and in sync as much as possible. And
so what happens? Sorry, what happens if you encounter or if a bad host is identified? What happens at that point?
So a bad host would be kicked, identified through there's multiple methods of identifying them. Say peer review. Peer review basically assesses the requests and hammers the host with requests to make sure that it's actually responding correctly according to the application it has hosted. We have a lot of security around the containers that run on a host. So a bad host is going to be pretty difficult to achieve. I think with the methods we're using currently with the containers, we're looking at a hardware secure enclave. So things like Intel SGX and AMD SEV. So they should resolve everything perfectly. The idea of kind of a bad host is one that we are keen to just completely avoid.
But, well, ultimately, if a host drops offline because of connectivity issues or anything else, then they'll just be dropped from the network at that point.
Okay.
And the distribution system that exists will just reroute requests accordingly. Now, when that connection then comes back online, that host will be subject to all of the tests that it had to go through in order to get online in the first place, and obviously its reputation will have dropped as well.
Okay, perfect. Yep. All right, so let's maybe talk about some of the existing clients that you guys currently have on your platform.
So we have clients spanning a bunch of different areas. I guess we have focused over the last 3 years on the kind of publishing sector in the main, and the reason for that is we have some strong experience, particularly with our product director in that area, and other areas of the team as well. But mainly that's because it's given us access to a very broad audience, kind of set and demographic. So global audience measured in the tens and hundreds of millions that it's enabled us to really test and seriously kind of battle harden the individual web services. So in content and publishing, we're working with Bauer, one of the largest, actually the largest radio real estate owner in the world, one of the largest publishers in the world. They have brands in their stable like Empire Online, like Lifestyle, like Kiss FM, Kerrang, on and on and on. All of their digital products in the UK run off of our stack. US team's currently rolling out our stack across all of their properties as well. Working with Haymarket here, which is a large publisher. They are running whatcar.com's largest automotive platform in the UK, and I think I'm right in saying Europe too. And that's end-to-end on our stack as well. We are working with Virgin Limited Edition. They're running DADI CDN, DADI Q, a couple of other components. Monocle running on DADI CDN and DADI Q, a couple of other bits too. And in the app space, we have Looks Great. So kind of a pretty kind of broad set of clients, pretty contained. Give has made us and kept us profitable since inception. We're going to be working to continue to evolve the technical stack for those individual businesses. So, the retained relationship we have with them is all about focus on deploying, maintaining the stack, iterating and introducing new technologies. So, for us and for them as well, we see the decentralized nature of the platform as being a kind of logical stepping stone in that journey. So our expectation is that we'll be bringing that business into the network as well.
Okay, perfect. That kind of leads perfectly into the next question here. And what are your plans to bring developers to the platform?
So a kind of developer marketing strategy is our key focus. You may or may have not seen it, but on our site somewhere, maybe you should be able to get to it from the due deal page. There's a link to our marketing strategy specifically for developers. So that's a Google Deck which runs to quite some depth. We see individual developers and dev teams as being central to kind of all digital products, and they're playing a kind of ever greater role in the decision-making process in businesses as well, of pretty much every size. So for us, getting developers using the stack is a kind of natural area for us to be in, because ultimately that will lead to businesses using the stack as well. So we have a really strong focus there. We also have outreach programs for agencies. We have direct sales function, which will be looking at SMEs and enterprises too. So it's an area we're going to be building and expanding our teams on post the CrowdSale event itself. But we have a key and strong focus on taking the network to market in its various guises, because obviously we have lots of different web services, and each of those has its own kind of sales story, if you like.
Yeah, they're each sort of their own arm, right? So I'm not gonna lie to you, I missed this marketing strategy. This is really great. So guys, if you want to take a look at the marketing strategies, just on the due diligence section on the website, it's an entire presentation. So definitely go through that. I'm going to go through that after this, because I'm not going to lie, I missed that one. That pretty much answers kind of the next few questions about marketing plans. Do you have any partnerships or specific partnerships you can announce or allude to maybe?
Nothing I can announce. We're working with a whole bunch of businesses in the kind of infrastructure connectivity space. We've announced one partnership so far, which is with NetWise, who have data centers in the UK and throughout Europe. And we're working with them and a bunch of others as well to really utilize, I guess, what you'd call debt capacity, right? So large data centers, obviously lots of infrastructure spun up, lots of it's not doing anything. So from their perspective, having a system like ours available to them, where they're able to run a Stargate, maybe multiple Stargates, and the other nodes as well, is a method of monetizing that kind of debt capacity. So we've had a lot of inbound communication from the kind of partnership perspective. We're working on a partnership program right now. We will have a dedicated partnership team that will be dealing with this stuff, because right now the explosion in interest has been so high that we're slightly struggling to keep up. So if you've written to us about kind of running a Stargate, then just bear with us. We will come back to absolutely each and every one of you. But the key focus for us in the kind of the largest partnerships we're working with right now is in establishing what we'd call a network backbone. So that looks like the kind of key nodes in the stack being deployed across very well connected points, around the world. And the rationale for us doing that and kind of getting them in play with partners before we open them up to everyone else is that it ensures that we have capacity from day one, which is critical to us bringing over existing business, and obviously anyone else that's going to start using the services in this space.
Perfect. Yeah, you guys, did you say you have an entire team for like partnership outreach?
No, I said we're building one.
Oh, okay, sorry, but even still,
yeah.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. Okay, awesome. All right, let's just quickly touch on the token sale and some of the metrics and maybe some key information, and then we'll dig into the actual community questions. So I believe you guys had a pre-sale on the 22nd, right?
Yes, that's correct. And that was 10% of tokens. That was split into two phases. We had a whitelist phase, which we set up at the end of last year, on the back of what we at that point saw as a kind of explosion in interest. But looking back, I think we were maybe 10,000 members in our community at that point, and an order of magnitude fewer interested parties. But anyway, that effectively the whitelist was a reward for people who were on board early. There were 500 people whitelisted. Of those, around about 260, 280, I think, Jim, took part in that kind of first 6-hour period. After the 6-hour period, we opened it up to everybody who had applied for the whitelist, and that was a further 2,000 people. That second phase sold out in seconds.
I imagine.
And then I mean, it was quite something to see. I mean, just the kind of speed of the piece took us aback somewhat. But no, it was fantastic and ran really smoothly. And then the public sales on the 29th at 12 UTC. So that is midday. And that comprises the majority of the remaining tokens. Of 50% are available on that day.
Okay, so I just want to touch back. You said 50% of the tokens are available?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Just want to, because the website says 10,000 tokens, or 10 million for the pre-sale, 50 million for the public sale. So just want to clarify that. So
that's correct. Yeah. 50 million tokens is 50% of the tokens that have been created.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant 50% of the tokens you were selling. So to break it down for people, really 80% of the tokens are still available that you're selling to the public, right? Around 80%.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. So
yeah, the pre-sale, the pre-sale was a small event.
Yes, exactly. That's people are FOMOing a bit, thinking, oh, what's happening? But there's lots of tokens left for the. Although I think it's going to be minutes in my eyes for you guys. That's just my personal view on it.
Well, we'll see. I wouldn't like to make predictions on that front, but we're aware of the level of interest, and one of the things we've done is put an individual wallet cap in place. So that is set at $5,000, and through our KYC process, we're doing our best to prevent the creation of multiple accounts. Some of that will be inevitable, but we're working really hard to make sure it's not. And just to touch on that kind of process for a second, we're working with a business out of Canada for the automatic verification of individuals wherever possible. And actually what we're seeing is around about 75% of everybody that submits their documents is getting verified automatically, and within around about 5 minutes or so. Everyone that can't be automatically verified is then being handled manually. And we have a warehouse in London Bridge here in London, UK. We've got 30 people in there who are processing those documents on a case-by-case basis. So if it takes a little longer than you would like, that's why it's being done by hand by a team of dedicated people.
Perfect. I would suggest that anybody, if you're interested and if you haven't yet, I would register now and start doing your KYC. Because as Joe said, the demand has just gone absolutely viral. So register sooner than later is my recommendation from my end here. All right, perfect. Let's get into the community questions. Everybody, let's take a breather, get a drink. This is I love my community so much because the questions they ask are they basically make me look good because they have some of the most in-depth questions I've ever seen. So, all right, I am going to start at the top, and I like to credit the people asking the questions. So, Gas Trader asks, "Are you familiar with Sia Coin and other decentralized storage systems? And if so, how is your solution how is DADI Store compared to those?"
Right. Yeah, we are familiar with the likes of Sia and Storage and other storage solutions. While DADI Store is also a distributed file storage mechanism, it's not designed to be the focus of the network. It's a small component of the entire web services offering. So we don't see that customers will come to us and say, "I just want to store files," because these other services are available for that. But we do see it as a key component of the entire network. So yeah, it's not our focus to offer storage, but we do have storage enabled.
Okay, yeah, it's just sort of a key piece of the pie, right? It's not a huge focus. Exactly. Gotcha. Okay. Gas Trader again asks, with regards to MMR, which I believe is monthly recurring revenue, do you plan to roll over those customers to the blockchain solution or continue developing the centralized part of the company?
So we're not going to continue developing the centralized part of the business. Obviously, the web services themselves are all open source, and they will continue to be developed. Our primary focus is on the network and the use of the web services in the network. So your expectation is we'll be moving over existing engagements in time. What that looks like will be taken on a case-by-case basis. But as I mentioned earlier, our relationships are focused on the ongoing kind of development and iteration of the tech solutions that are in play. So we see that as a kind of natural evolution. And of course, all new engagements will start with a commitment to the network.
Perfect. All right. That's what I like to hear, actually. So they're actually moving centralized customers onto the decentralized platform just a little bit at a time. You don't want to instantly slam everybody on there. Perfect.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Equisar, I hope I'm saying your name right, buddy. How is the possible latency issue going to be resolved for your API/CDN solution?
So the latency issue, we've kind of we're currently really not seeing much of a trade-off in terms of latency. Using gRPC as a protocol between the gateways and hosts means that it's a open HTTP2 protocol, so it's just another hop. Counteract any of the kind of potential of any of these trade-offs. We're introducing some of the kind of concepts around proximity to the user in network interactions. So, if you're making a request to an application, it will prioritize someone, a host that is not only near to you with the least amount of hops, but in some cases potentially on the same ISP, so even less. So we've kind of counteracted that and then some.
Okay. Let's get to the next. That was a good answer, by the way. Next question from Landis. Okay, so this is actually a pretty good opportunity. You guys kind of touched on this, and that like other VPS or AWS solutions are sort of just like a blank slate, right? So I think, Joe, you touched on it, where you're going to have like ready to use packages that would be included, like Ubuntu, etc., stuff like that. So maybe if you can kind of give us a little bit of a deeper dive into that one.
Well, I guess the key difference for us is that you're not starting with a bare bones server level of clean slate. What you're starting with is with bare bones set of web services in a ready state. So that enables you to kind of mix and match services and build whatever you want to build, incredibly quickly. So, a great example of that actually would be the KYC processing platform that we built out with the Canadian company over the last 4 to 5 weeks. We've taken that from concept to delivery and real-time use in that time. Another great example would be Empire Online, which I mentioned earlier for Bauer. That was built from concept to live in around about 6 weeks. The previous version of that platform had taken about 9 months to build. So on the one hand, you have the kind of bare bones web services, but we're also going to be building out a marketplace. And the concept of the marketplace is that it will enable individual developers and other businesses to use the web services in bundles with their own software built on top of it, and then sell those into the network. So that's a little way off, but what that would look like would be, for example, if I build an e-commerce platform which was integrated with a Stripe, which included a kind of custom inventory system that I built, then I'd be able to launch that into the network and then sell that through the marketplace.
Perfect. All right. So that answers that. So you're not just getting just the bare bones. I like that. All right. Question from Ryan. Great name, by the way. Will your server allocation be dynamic or a set speed/price tiering system?
So it'll be dynamic, but within a tiered pricing system, if that makes sense. So there'll be layers of performance and capacity. The intention here is to give flexibility to customers because all hosts, all gateways in the network are not made equal, right? So one of the things we're looking at is the ability for us to set pricing within a number of set tiers using that kind of dynamic range of capacity, if you like. Key for us, though, is that the pricing models that we end up presenting to the customer base are really clear, are mapped back to currencies that are readily understood, as well as being offered in cryptos, as you'd expect, and that those are fixed for long durations of time. Right? We can't be in a position whereby we have price that's fluctuating at the rate that the crypto space is currently fluctuating, because that just won't work for, well, particularly the enterprise customers we're currently engaged with.
Yeah, they need to know their costs and what they're going to be. You can't have that bouncing around all the time.
Exactly.
Okay, question from Landis. Can you spin up additional servers to accompany a temporary spike in traffic? Think Reddit hug of death. Good question.
So, I mean, as Joe mentioned earlier, we're launching with a very strong and distributed core backbone of the network. Redundancy will be built in enough and sufficient amounts to handle any any traffic spikes. Redundancy is built into the cost of the network, sort of same as a traditional cloud host. And miners that join the network kind of join initially with a low reputation. So low reputation miners that join the network are more likely to be assigned to a kind of redundancy role. But as their availability and proof of availability increases and their proof of trust, they make their way into the kind of more active. They make their way towards being more active hosts. So basically, reputation, as the reputation kind of rises and falls, it rises and falls in line with proof of availability metrics.
Perfect. All right, next question again from Ryan. Still a great name. If we start a shop using DADI eCom, do our customers need to pay using DADI, or can they use fiat as well?
E-commerce platform using DADI web could use any payment gateway you like at all. There's a tutorial actually in our forum about integrating Stripe, which will just kind of take you through a step-by-step process. So, reality is anything you can kind of integrate with in a kind of existing web service page, you can integrate with on the platform. Obviously, you can also use crypto tools, which are being kind of built into the core stack as well, if you want to. But yeah, fiat's absolutely there and supported.
So you're saying that I can start a store and charge people in TheGobOne?
looking down the track, that's the intention. Yeah.
Oh man. So many ideas are brewing now. That's awesome. All right. For the Stargate, how do you decide the trusted partners on the release? That's a good question. Again, from Ryan.
Yeah, so I mean, we said that we're taking Stargates in the first instance on a kind of case-by-case basis, and we're manually reviewing. So for us, that looks like name partnership. It looks like relationships, developed individually. Our focus in the first instance is on a really kind of strong geographical spread. There's no point in us just having a bunch of Stargates centered on London, for example, and of course on ensuring capacity. So we've not set the time frame for opening up that particular node in the network yet, but we will 100% be opening it up and making it available for anyone to use and run. But for us to do that, we first have to ensure we've got the right level of capacity in the network to, for it to be able to run and moderate and, test itself, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that sounds right. Okay, now it looks like we're going to get into more of the questions that have been asked on our Discord or in the live chat here. So Tex Miners asks, who do you guys see as your main competition?
That's a real tough one because we're kind of, I mentioned earlier, each of the web services, effectively have their own sales strategy against them. But taken as a whole, for us, it's really AWS, it's Google Cloud, it's kind of traditional centralized platforms who are providing similar functionality in that space. That's certainly our focus.
Okay, perfect. All right, question from Matt. This is a good one. I liked this question. If and how will you protect against, quote, miners running a VM from decompiling it during the runtime and obtaining sensitive information?
Well, the VM, the containers that are going to be running on the host machines are going to be running in a secure enclave. So as I mentioned earlier, it depends on the hardware, but Intel chips, Intel SGX, AMD SEV. So the ability for hosts themselves to decompile, for anyone hosting the host application to decompile, is not possible, nor are DMA attacks. So any sort of memory attacks are kind of circumvented by using secure enclaves.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, hold on a second. Okay, sorry, I just thought I was muted there for a second. All right, this is more of a kind of statement and question. It's a little bit long, but I'm going to read it all. I guess it's a little bit harsh, but I'm going to kind of read it out nonetheless. So Equizar again says, I'm a software engineer. I've seen the repos on the GitHub, None of them produce real value to be implemented on the blockchain. They're better community-driven projects that outperform DADI in terms of documentation and support. I'm pretty sure in performance too. I mean, I don't know if you have any proof of that, but why DADI adopted the quote "not invented here" syndrome. For those not familiar, it's basically like creating some. Yeah, okay. So I mean, you can see the question on the sheet. They're basically saying that I'm not even really sure of the question, to be honest with you, but if you can sort of respond at all, go ahead. Oh, I think you're muted there, Joe.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Hey, yeah, cool. Yeah, less of a question, more of an opinion, which is fine. I mean, you're obviously open. We're open to hearing questions like that, and you're entitled to your opinion. What I suggest is that you wait and see. Basically, wait until you can take a look at the full tech of the network, and then you can do a kind of side-by-side comparison. I mean, the important thing to say is, as Arthur, earlier was rattling through the different technologies we're using in the network itself. Those technologies, they weren't invented here; they were invented elsewhere, and they're named. So, the "not invented here" thing, I would say we really don't have that. At all. The technology that we're building and we're creating at a network level is bringing lots of existing bits of tech together and doing really interesting and clever things with them. At the web services level, we're building stuff that just doesn't exist elsewhere to the same degree, right? As far as I'm aware, there's no kind of CDN platform that's sat there in the open source community that does half the functionality of DADI CDN. So that's why.
I agree. I mean, kind of a rough statement, but claiming to be outperforming something that you guys literally just put on the testnet not too long ago, I don't really, agree with that statement. Yeah, I mean, but
from a performance perspective, the proof for us is in the pudding. If you like, we've obviously been able to do. The existing businesses we're working with have been able to do is to build out digital products at a pace that you just can't achieve elsewhere. You're going to need to get your head around some slightly new techniques, but they're not that complicated. It's all pretty straightforward. So I just encourage you to not just look at it, but download it and use it and try and build something with it. You can spin up an API in, like I say, literally 20 seconds. So that's a pace that it's pretty difficult to achieve elsewhere.
Agreed. Okay, so there's a few more technical questions from Alcazar, and maybe I should have maybe this is sort of all one kind of question in one, and maybe that's why I didn't understand. So I guess he's just talking about the difference between using. Okay, so let me just ask a question. What is the technical requirement to use MongoDB for your API? And I guess he's saying it's well known that MongoDB is an inferior product regarding no SQL databases or no SQL.
Well, I think again, if we're talking about it being well known to be inferior, then that's an opinion. It's an opinion I share, and it's really important to say though that API doesn't require MongoDB. That's one database that it integrates with through its database support for database engines. So you can plug API into pretty much any database. Jim, do you want to talk about engine support for a sec?
Sure, and I think it's this probably leads into the next question as well. I think it's important to remember that we're not in early stages with the web services suite. I mean, API is 4 years old. So when we first developed it, API, we were using MongoDB, and as time went on and we implemented it for more clients, we realized that it's not the generic solution that we can offer to everyone. So API now has the support of data connectors, in which you can write your own data connector, which integrates with API and your chosen backend database. So we've got one in development for CouchDB 2. We've got one currently fully available for writing JSON files to disk, and we've got a couple of others that we're working on as well. I wrote a tutorial for our forum about how to do it for a MySQL database, if that's your thing. So we can now connect API to a variety of even relational databases.
Okay, so you mentioned the forum a fair bit. I want to touch on that. I see it sounds like you guys have a lot of documentation. Oh yeah, here it is. So again, my bad for not seeing this before, but it looks like you guys have a lot of interesting documentation set up here as well too that people can take a look at.
Yeah, and I guess that
Yeah,
the next question as well. You know, we've got a lot of code that is probably considered to be old-fashioned, and that comes from the products being 4 years old. So every time we build new things into the platform, we do our best to go through and migrate existing code. We don't want to do it all at once because that would be too much of a task. Yeah, so while we probably don't consider it to be technical debt, we are doing our best to go through and modernize it.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, no, those answer the questions for me. But the next question we're going to just pass over because I believe that one's already been answered. Okay, so this is a question specifically about the ICO and getting in, and people are worried about a gas war. So do you plan to have any sort of limitations on GWI and gas limits, etc., anything like that for the crowd sale?
We don't, no.
Okay. So it is a gas war, guys.
I mean,
that's not anything bad for me to say for you guys. It's just good to know.
You kind of get to the point where that's kind of unavoidable, right? I mean, unless we had a ridiculously low cap and we were whitelisting absolutely everybody, it's just not something that you can really get away from. Is our view. So yeah, we've set a low cap. We have a KYC process in place, and that's pretty rigorous. And we are actively going through our data set and removing everything where we see dedupes or people who are trying to creating duplicates or deduping anywhere where people are trying to kind of game the system or do things which are opposed to our terms and conditions.
Perfect. Okay, so we've already touched on the masternodes. No token metrics for that yet, guys, but don't worry, I'll be bugging Joe lots, and as soon as I know, you'll know. Okay, so the next few questions are from Bison Bull, more about the company side of things. So where are you guys registered, and do you have a certificate of incorporation that lists directors, etc.?
Yep, all publicly available information. We're registered in England and Wales. Our company number is on site. If you jump to the due diligence section, you'll find a direct link to our company's house listing. All of our filings for the past 4 years are there, and that includes the list of directors and our registered office address, which is 7 Marylebone Lane here in London. It's W1U 1DF if you want to find us.
Look at that, guys. So I just want to actually quickly touch on this due diligence section, and for any maybe future ICO people out there, please do this. This made my life a million times easier, having all this information and links to the pertinent information in the proper section to go through. As a researcher, it was honestly glorious to see. So I just wanted to at least commend you guys on that.
Thanks.
All right. Bison Bull again asks about details for the IP or intellectual property. Again, I imagine that would be found all in the filings, etc., right?
Yeah. I mean, the reality there is we have published code. We're covered by copyright law here and internationally. We have trademarks. We have not applied for any patents. And the reason for that, for me, is kind of ideological. I don't really believe in them. I think they're an incredibly negative thing in the software space. They're used by very large organizations to scare smaller organizations. They do very little to kind of promote R&D and the advancement of our economies, of our society. So yeah, I'm kind of anti them, which is why we don't have any.
Perfect. Okay. So the next 2 questions can kind of be rolled into one. So is there a vesting schedule for the team and advisor tokens? And if there is that managed by a smart contract?
So yes, there is. It's over 4 years. It looks like 10% up front, and then the rest just equally distributed over a 4-year period. That is not managed by a smart contract. That's managed by a business function internally with us.
Okay. All right. Again from Bison Bull 39. Okay, yeah, this is one I wanted to ask you. Is there anything that the public can get their hands on right now and take a look at? I mean, I know you guys have the GitHub, which has thousands and thousands of lines of code. But there is anything available to test for the public yet?
So, I mean, the core web services are there, and you're free to download those and test those. There is a tool in DADI which makes that process really easy as well. It's just a nice command line interface that will take you through the kind of setup of the key products. In terms of the network itself, we have a testnet up. We will be inviting people to join that in a kind of limited distribution using some custom Raspberry Pis actually in the coming handful of weeks. So we'll kind of give that shout out to the community as soon as it's ready. That'll be first come first serve. We're just giving those boxes away. We're looking for kind of broad coverage in order to just allow us to push capacity a bit more in that space. So that'll be the first point that people outside of the business are able to kind of see and play with it, if you like. And obviously as we get to kind of alpha beta state in our roadmaps, we'll be making those code bases available as well.
Perfect. I'll give you my mailing address right now because I want one of those Raspberry Pis. I think you touched on the KYCs being done by a company in Canada. Okay, U.S. investors, I believe, can participate, right? Bison Bull is asking if you secured a Reg D. No
is the answer to that. So the kind of focus here, and if you look through our terms, it's beholden on the individuals to get their own advice, seek their own advice, for the rules in their individual jurisdiction, and that applies to every jurisdiction around the world. So we are operating out of the UK. We are a utility token. We have a relatively low cap, and that's about as much as I can say on it.
Perfect. Yep. Nope. That's pretty much answers that. Okay. We've touched a bit on the competition side. So let's, okay. And I think you touched on this briefly as well, but maybe let's just ask Nene from Govis. Does onboarding of existing websites into the DADI require any changes to them?
Yeah, so certainly in the first few iterations of the network, where our focus is on our web services themselves. So we're not providing that kind of bare bones server space. We're providing a suite of web services for it. So in terms of onboarding, there's a crossover period. That looks pretty straightforward, but it's different depending on what you're bringing across, right? So if you look at DADI Web, it has support for multiple templating engines in it, and multiple templating engines on a section by section and even a page by page basis. So if you were to take a website from WordPress and drop it into DADI Web, you could do so almost like for like. There would be some tweaking to do around the edges. You'd need to connect some data sources, but the work there is not a kind of throw it all away and start again. It's one of migration. Perfect. Anything more to say on that, Joe?
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything to add at all? Double check. Okay. Do consumers require any special software to access content hosted on DADI?
No, they don't. It delivers in exactly the same way as an Apache or an Nginx does today.
Perfect. Okay, this is a good question, and I like this question. Competing with giants like Amazon and Microsoft on a cost basis might be very challenging. Can you articulate on some of the key technology advantages? I think you touched on this, and that's actually the fact that it's going to be quite a cost savings or cost cuts to keep this kind of platform running. But I'll let you dig into that one because I'm sure you have a better answer than me.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for us from a cost perspective is we don't have the capital expenditure that exists with businesses that are having to roll out their own data centers. Those sunk costs of tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. So there is a base business reality that those businesses need to be able to recoup costs in order to be able to build more data centers, in order to achieve better economies of scale, in order to be able to drop their prices. So we're not competing like for like from that perspective. So we're coming out of the gates with a fundamentally different proposition. We're not sat here saying we're going to beat AWS and Microsoft and right. It will be amazing if that happens, but it's not going to happen overnight. And if it does happen, it's fairly unlikely to happen. What we're saying is that we have a fundamentally different proposition that's pretty unique in market that can enable you to build digital products, which just apart from everything else that's there from a kind of speed and performance perspective, which you'll be able to do at a great price point. So we think we'll be able to take a significant market share with that proposition, and that's what we're gunning for.
Perfect. Okay, so Adrian asks, I guess essentially what he's asking is, I guess I'll kind of roll this into one question is, when do the tokens get distributed, and when are they unlocked by the smart contract for, et cetera, trading or whatever else?
So they'll be distributed at the end of the crowd sale period. So that officially ends on February 28th. So effectively 1st of March. And the point at which we'll be going to exchanges will be aligned with the release of our mainnet.
Okay, so if, say, the token sale sells out in 5 minutes, still the smart contract won't allow unlocking until essentially March 1st?
Yeah, we're working on that basis right now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, another question from Adrian. How do you see the node development post ICO? Do the nodes are they having software prepared for that yet? Sorry, I'm not. Maybe that's worded poorly by me, but.
Well, Arthur can talk more about this. From my perspective, we're at kind of super early MVP, so the testnet's up and running. Those nodes are performing their base functions, but there's quite a lot of work to do on them, right? So the roadmap for those goes out. Right now, we're 18 months projected, and we'll be sharing new and kind of updated roadmaps with more detail. So taking the roadmaps that's there and just providing a kind of deeper dive to it in the coming couple of weeks. So yeah, there's a lot to do on them, and we'll be doing that with dedicated resource.
Perfect. Yeah, I just realized I missed touching on the roadmap earlier on, but anybody who wants to see the roadmap, it's right on the site, and you can track what they've completed and what their plans are. And I mean, just take a look. This is a lot more detailed than a lot of roadmaps I've seen out there, which is basically 4 words for each milestone, which is kind of crazy. So Arthur, I think this one's probably maybe directed at you. And how will you deal with DDoS events? Will you use your proprietary technology for that or something else?
Well, it's important to say up front that we're working with a couple of our partners to get access to network scrubbing centers. So, that's something we're tackling at a network level itself. So as in literally, cable connectivity level. So that's the kind of key focus of it. Arthur, do you want to speak in terms of the software layer in the network?
Yeah, I mean, we're working to identify any distributed denial of service attacks at Stargate and gateway level. Avoiding any queued requests based on that information is going to be the first area that we focus on. But as Joe mentioned, there's a lot more sort of up the chain that we can implement.
Perfect. All right. Let's just there's a few questions left. You guys have been awesome. It's been almost an hour and 20 minutes now, so. We talked at the beginning of this, probably could be a 3-hour AMA if we wanted to, but we do have to at least cut it down a little bit here, guys. So if I do skip your questions, I apologize, but we can't hold these guys up all day. They have work to do. Get this crowd sale ready. So Adrian says, how close is the mainnet and exact site example hosted / deployed on DADI's platform?
So we have production testing underway right now on our testnet. And at some point we'll be kind of releasing metrics and details on that. We expect the mainnet to be live in Q2, so a little ahead of schedule.
Perfect. Yeah, that's not too far out. All right, this is actually a really great question. A little bit off topic from Sander. What's your guys' favorite team building activity?
We should probably let the guys answer that. But we I mentioned earlier we're a distributed team, so we work remotely and to kind of dev cycles as opposed to kind of hard delivery dates. But we try and get together fairly regularly. And one of the things we did for we've done a fair few of now actually, and plan to do another one later this year. We run DADI Weekenders. So that's we basically take a big manor house somewhere and we get everyone and all of their families over. So the last one we had 90, there were 95 of us, right, including all the kids. So those things are pretty good fun. It was right after Bowie's death as well, so we had a tribute band. It was quite entertaining. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you enjoy them?
Yeah, the Weekenders are great, but I think what keeps teams spread up the most is the actual distributed nature of how we work. And I can fly to to see one of our co-workers in Portugal, for example, and work next to the ocean in the sun, and instead of being in London where it's often miserable. Being able to do that and solve issues face to face, and also being able to do it asynchronously via technology is you can't beat it. It beats going into an office and being blasted by fluorescent lights every day.
Totally agree, 100%. All right, that was a great question, Sounder. By the way, I love that. That's very awesome question. Doozy asks, "Are you okay? Yeah, we already talked about partners. We're gonna skip that one. Okay, there's two questions. Kind of, I'm gonna lump into one. The website says meet us at. There's a bunch of conferences, but you guys aren't registered. That ties into also if you guys are going to be speaking anywhere in the public in the future. If you can shed some light on that."
Yeah, so I mean, we speak fairly regularly at events. We had one a month and a half ago that Eduardo, one of our principal engineers, was at. We're attending those conferences. We're saying meet us at because we're there, right? So Arthur's currently out in Miami. He's been at the blockchain conference there. How many people did you meet with, Arthur?
Probably, I think on the second day, maybe about 100 people I spoke to. I lost my voice. I think I spoke to more people than anyone on the stands, actually. So yeah, a lot. And I was wearing the DADI t-shirt, so I was kind of recognizable.
Target.
I need one of those t-shirts too. Joe, you're going to have to send me a giant box here, man.
We'll send you
some shirts.
We'll send you that in the file.
I'll send you guys some gob coins back for it. So.
So, you know, the reason we're not talking at the conferences immediately before and also after the crowd sale period is because, you know, to stand up and do a presentation is a lot of work, right? It's weeks and weeks of preparation. There are 18 of us. We're a strong team, but we have so much work to do on the platform itself, particularly around the crowd sale period. So our focus is on that. We're at the event, so we're there for a coffee to talk to. If you want to catch up with us, you can. But we will also have an event schedule, so we will start to, you know, engage more directly with the speaking circuit as we move later into the year.
Okay, perfect. A couple questions left here, and then we'll let you guys off the hook. How's the mining done? Can you mine with GPUs or something like that, etc.?
So it's majority CPU, RAM, bandwidth based. DADI CDN, some of its functions require GPU resource. So there's kind of targeted delivery of jobs within the network, but it's not mining in the traditional sense, right? The boxes aren't sat there kind of, you know, churning GPU, CPU cycles 24/7 to generate more coin. Rather, we're responding to job requests as they become available, and we're using the appropriate level of resource to fulfill those requests.
Perfect. Okay, that question from was Martin. All right, this is where I'm going to cut it off. Very last question from Rishab. Are you guys going to post the wallet address before the crowd sale or when it starts? Because typically there's a huge influx and causes some issues. So.
Yeah, our intention is to do it when it starts. So as with the pre-sale, that's coded into the platform itself. So it will appear at exactly the same time for everyone. You know, we have quite a lot of experience in this space. We're aware that there'll be a lot of traffic, and we're doing what we can to, you know, make sure that that remains an up and stable experience for everyone. We can't promise that'll be the case, of course, but you know, the pre-sale went well from that perspective, and touch wood, the public sale will as well.
Perfect. Okay, so just one, super last quick question. Some people are mentioning, I see in the chat, that you can, you know, put the maximum GUI in the smart contract, but I mean, that's something that, the contract's already been set up and deployed. I don't think that's something that you can edit after the fact. I don't know. I'm not a Solidity developer, but there's some people saying that it's possible to limit the GUI and stuff like that.
Do you have a view on that, Jim?
Well, yeah, the contract isn't technically deployed yet, and yeah, that is possible, but we haven't looked at doing that. I mean, we went with the maximum cap, sorry, for the individual wallet addresses, and I mean, there's still time before Monday, so that is a possibility.
Yeah, people seem to forgetting that, like, there's a cap of $5,000 US, I believe, per wallet, right? So
that's correct.
There's going to be plenty of chances to get in. Just be prepared, register now, do your KYC, get it done. All right, guys, appreciate the time. An hour and a half is pretty awesome for you guys to sit here and talk to us. And you guys are super busy. I appreciate the honesty with the clearing up of the FUD. I know that we'll definitely keep in touch because, you know, I need that giant box of DADI merch. But just thanks to all you guys for coming out and answering the questions. I know you're super busy. Crowd sale is when, Joe?
It is Monday, 12 UTC, so that's midday.
There you go. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate the time. Actually, one thing I forgot, I'll give you a closing statement if you like.
A closing statement. Oh, wow.
So
Stay with us, I think.
Let me give you a little context. The last AMA I did, the
Yeah.
closing statement was, show me the money.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm not going to go that far. I think that's a bit crass. You know, for us, the reason we're running a crowd sale is we need as many people as possible involved in the network, building the network, right? So it's all about reach. It's all about disrupting those kind of traditional centralized setups. We're not interested in having 4 or 5 big data centers that we own and control. What we really want is as many people participating in the network as possible. So when I say stay with us, that's what I mean, right? Participate in the sale, get your tokens in order to contribute to the network, in order to be part of the kind of future of web services.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate the time. This was an awesome AMA. Good luck in the crowd sale, and we will definitely talk more.
Awesome. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Take care, guys.
See you guys.
All right, guys. A very awesome AMA. I've been looking forward to doing this one for quite a while. One thing I do want to touch on is I am seeing people, someone in specific ask about QuantStamp auditing the contract. I'm not going to specifically ask about that because 1, they already got their contract audited and talked about it, and 2, the answer is simply they just didn't choose to. I'm seeing this question a lot more about the QuantStamp auditing contracts, and that's fair, I guess. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of specific question they already touched on. I'm not going to continue to hammer them on that. No offense to anybody. Oh, I didn't ask about when they'll peg FUSD. That I believe will probably be answered in the Telegram, or I can ask Joe afterwards. But yeah, that was a great closing statement. I agree. Well done. I am going to, if you guys have any questions for me, I'm just going to hang around for a couple more minutes. But you know what? I feel pretty satisfied. I know everyone's digging for, oh, what have we got here? Oh, sorry, got a little ding here. So they've covered what they can in the white paper, right? I said it from the very beginning in that, you know, I could see a world where they put it in there because they like the tech, and that's what everybody do in your research. You drop stuff in, and does it fit? And they just forgot. So I hope that cleared up a lot of the FUD for guys. You know, the company dissolutions are hilarious. Unless we get some more info on that, that one's done for me. And the white paper FUD in my eyes is pretty much cleared up as well. And people who are posting on Twitter saying they plagiarized their entire white paper is just completely false. So yeah, 30 days. So yeah, if you didn't hear, the smart contract has set up, they said right now, so maybe it's something that they can, you know, work on afterwards. But I think it's good of them to say, you know, the smart contract won't release the tokens until the smart contract releases the tokens. So if it comes earlier, it comes earlier. I don't like to say if I invested because that's financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. Other than that, guys, I think I hope I answered everyone's questions. Thank you again for the awesome questions. You guys make me look amazing when really it's the community asking all the awesome stuff. So appreciate the time, guys. I hope you enjoyed the AMA, and there'll be plenty more coming. I promise you that. I'll thank you for your time, and I'll see you guys in the next adventure. Take care.